All right, everybody. Welcome to the show. Thank you guys for tuning in this evening. Thank you, Enoch, for joining us this evening.
Absolutely, man. Glad to be here.
Thank you.
Awesome to be back here on your channel with you.
Absolutely. It's always a good time having you on, man. I enjoy our conversations. We have some pretty good ones.
Right on, right on. Excellent, excellent, man. Looking forward to it. Definitely. I hope everything's going good for you over there, and you and your family, and all of that.
It's doing pretty well, man. It's like we were saying earlier. It's hectic. Everything's in in that in that plant me now mode, right? And you're
Hmm.
and all your
Yeah.
best intentions, that you were like, well, if I just wait off a little extra this year, I'll be
Yeah.
ready to put in the ground at this date, and then I won't have to worry about this or that. And all like every year, it never fails. I'll plant early, and a frost will come, a late
Mm,
frost.
man.
Right at the end of May, first part of June. It never fails. It
Yeah.
comes right. This year, I said I'm not planting anything until
Yeah.
the end of May, beginning of June. And wouldn't you know it, there ain't a frost in sight, and there ain't been a frost.
Right.
Right,
Exactly.
right. So I
Exactly.
mean, I could have
And then,
planted, but I didn't.
yeah, and again too, it's always best to go by, your last frost date to be sure. I'm falling in that same sort of category this year. Last year, um, let's see, about a couple of weeks ago would have been, or about a week ago or so would have been our last frost date. May 15th, May 16th. There's one of those days is last
Right,
frost date here. But this time of year, though, even after just a week or so after the last frost date last year, it was freezing cold. There were
yep,
freezes, there were frosts that were happening late in the season. And it was one of those, yeah, this is why we wait to make sure we
right,
put, plan out our stuff and all of that. And then yet this year, the very next year, complete opposite. It's been
right,
warm. It's been warm. I could have probably planted out my like tomatoes and peppers and things, months ago. But I
right.
have a whole process. I line up the dates and all of that. And because of certain things as well too, on my own error and my own schedule, and like you said about being busy and having so
Right.
many things going on, some things kind of get neglected, or you have to hold off on some things, and that kind of punished some of my tomato plants. And peppers a little bit. They're just having a little bit of harder time with the hardening off process because it's so much warmer, you
Right.
know and it's so for young plants having really warm days and really direct sunlight. So it's about balancing, having them in the shade, having them in the sunlight, but there's no clouds, so to even try to
Yep.
give you any some sort of filtered sun or anything. So when they're dealing with that sun, they're dealing with it direct, and on their so my pepper plants have been kind of battling it a little bit. Tomatoes, kind of because I've had to hold off some things, and again, the process was waiting for this certain time. Then I ended up with these starts that are just kind of.
Yep. Yep.
But the
That,
great thing about tomatoes is they can deal with it and they can handle it. Same with peppers. Peppers will the bigger problem with them in a sense. And I mean, similar. I mean, you're getting the same kind of in the tomatoes. Tomatoes are just gonna be faster in their recovery. Peppers just going to kind of stunt a little bit, and they're going to hold back because of that stress, and they'll
right.
lose some leaves and all that, but you'll see they'll just regrow and they'll get going. And then when the point comes in their growth, a little bit later on down in the next few weeks, they'll just kind of burst and start growing just like everything else. But it's going to stunt them a little bit more than it will tomatoes. But they're going to grow all right and be good in the next few weeks. But
Right. Right.
it's a rough start, man. And again, it's because of the weather. It was a different outcome to what I was planning for,
Right.
because
And
of the weather being so much more hotter. I mean, it was like 88,
right.
87 a couple
Almost
days
90
back.
degrees here.
Yeah, almost 90 degrees. It's unbelievable.
It is. It's crazy because, like you said, our last frost date is in the middle of May, right?
Hmm.
But
Yep.
without fail, every year we will get that late frost at the end of May, beginning of
Yep.
June. And
Exactly.
I like you, I could have planted out. I could have probably literally
Oh, the
planted
beginning
out.
of April.
But yeah, Yeah, and
I
been
would I
fine.
would have I could have probably done just well at the beginning of April, but that would have been insane.
Right.
Everybody would have thought I was insane at that time, and I was like, "But you know
Everybody would have
what?
thought,
It's been a
yep,
warm winter. I just have a feeling, and yeah, but we know those gardener feelings at the beginning of the season, and sometimes things come and bite us in the long
uh,
run,
that's
and
right.
be out there clamoring, trying to protect things and make sure they're safe during frost. But no, if I had actually put them in the ground, though, I my plants would probably be as tall as me by now, putting out fruits already and all that
Yep.
sort of stuff. And no, now I got stunted plants that are probably be lucky to just kind of make it through the summertime, which is fastly approaching us because of the weather we've already had, right?
Right. And that's how my plants are. I went and planted 6 weeks prior to the date that I wanted to plant out. Right.
Yep.
So I planted my pepper seeds. I planted my tomato seeds 6 weeks before I thought I'd plant out. So back in the
Hmm.
middle of April, I planted these plants. And usually I plant my pepper plants January, February, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And then whenever it comes June, when I plant them out, because I always end up having to wait till close to June, right? Between
Hmm.
middle of May and June, I'll get them planted out and they've already got, flowers on them or peppers growing on them. And you got to
Yep.
pull those off so they can
Yep.
go back to growing.
Want to make
And so
sure
I
they keep
didn't
it.
want stunted plants, because I had them in pots for too long,
Yeah.
right? Well, now I have
Exactly.
stunted plants because they're trying to get used and harden off in this hot weather, like
Yep.
you, right? And,
Exactly.
and like you said, the tomato plants and pepper plants are just like, oh man, I
Yeah,
can't, we
pepper
can't do
plants are
this.
dropping a lot of leaves. I had so many leaves earlier. I just noticed the wind's blowing them off because they're, just and having to deal with wind even too. It's been a couple of windy days. So it's like, but I gotta get them outside. I gotta get them hardening off because I get mine started again, like you said, way back. I think we started mid-February this year, and they're under lights and all this sort of system I have in here for my
Right,
peppers and everything. And usually every year they go out and they do pretty good because it's not so intense and so warm at that
right.
time. So, they're getting some sun. Maybe I get some lucky with some cloudy days and I can get them out there and they can harden off and get really strong real fast. But this year, like I said, it's so intense. I'm just gonna have to
Have you
deal with it.
ever,
I'm just gonna
you
have
ever,
to roll with it. That's it. They'll be all right. I'll get fruit down the road.
right,
It'll just be a little longer season for those things as far as
right.
getting
And hopefully it stays
harvest.
warm longer into the fall, you know,
Yeah,
so we
yeah,
get a longer harvest.
yeah, yeah. I'm hoping
Um,
so.
have you ever considered using like a shade cloth or anything like that to put them underneath? Just while you're hardening them off.
I probably should set up something. I do have a shade cloth. It would probably be good, but what I do is I just kind of, yeah, what I have to do is just kind of time and be as best I can. But yeah, you're probably right. Maybe a more shade cloth in the direct sun, kind of just to hold it back a little bit would probably be a really good idea. But I just kind of try to 15-20 minutes direct sun.
Right.
I got them on these roller things, so
Oh,
I got,
really?
yeah, so they hold like 16 plants on these rollers. So I kind of roll it over into the shade, let it sit in the shade for a little bit, roll it out into this. It's just,
Oh, okay.
it's tedious. I
Right.
really get into it, and well, I mean, I try to remember. You know what I
Right.
mean, to make sure I'm doing the timing right and all of that. Sometimes might be 5 minutes off or so, you know, and do the best I can. But yeah, you're right. I should absolutely. I mean, maybe for a future year. I just didn't think of it. It was just this year, and I wasn't planning for it to be so intense and so warm. And again, too, just trying to roll with it and do the best I can. So I was like, maybe just a few less minutes and just kind
Right.
of try to do that sort of thing. But still, it is what it is for the plant, and it's dealing with this and that and this and that, and it's just a shock for it all the way around. So
Absolutely. What do
yeah,
you
yeah,
think?
just gonna have to
What do
do
you?
with it. I'm gonna get them in their pots and everything where they're supposed to be. That's gonna be done here, hopefully tomorrow, and then they're gonna do what they do.
Okay, cool. So
I'll
you're gonna
feed them. I'll
you're gonna
feed
be
'em like crazy. I'll feed them like crazy over the next few weeks.
there. You go. There you
And
go.
see
What
what
are you gonna be feeding them?
Just we're just doing straight compost worm teas.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I've got some worms I've been growing, and I've been harvesting my own worm castings. Telling you, Ryan, this is the way to go, man. Without even telling you, not even kidding you. I mean, now because I've spent so much money for years buying
Right.
and sending away and having worm castings sent to me, or I finally found a place locally that I could get some okay worm castings. They weren't the
Right.
best. They weren't what I really liked what I was getting. But now I'm growing my own worms and harvesting my own worm castings, and they're
So how
just
do you
it's
do
just
that?
awesome, and it's so great, and it's free basically, you know?
Right. How do you harvest your own worm castings?
Yeah, well, that's gonna be something I'm going to and I'm working on, I did it I did it one way, and I've now got an idea to kind of improve it just a little bit more, so I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna make a video about
Okay.
harvesting, because I made a video about setting up the bins that I got. I set this up this last fall. So I did
Right.
a video with that, that's on my channel, and that kinda just shows you how I'm just using some basic bins. And so I'm gonna do a video too to kind of follow up, talk about what I think works or doesn't work with the system I set up, and then we're going to harvest some and show about harvesting and what I've learned about harvesting them out of these bin systems, and then hopefully, yeah, hopefully that'll be all great. And but I, already, I've already made one harvest off of the ones I first started with, and now
Right.
I'm getting ready to harvest for the second round, and just beautiful black, just perfect
Right.
worm castings of my own for free,
How
made
how
right here.
how much does one bin yield?
I would say, I got like, I mean, I got a good nice pile
Right.
out of my bin that I got, and I only had it about half full of bedding.
Right.
I think I'm gonna increase the bedding just a little bit more, and then feed maybe just a little bit less too.
Okay.
That was another thing that I kind of learned in the process is, we're thinking we got to feed, these things are hungry, they got to eat. Well, you got to let them eat too,
Right. Right.
because they got to consume it, and you got to give them the time to be able to consume all of these different food scraps that you put into the bins and whatnot. But yeah, figuring that timing out, getting that sort of thing right. Also, another point too is that you also kind of like, and this was the thing about feeding less too, is it is kind of a lot more less than I thought when I mean, really thought, and that's something I'm going to be exploring and talking about, because we're starting them out in this bedding. We want to make and have them break down the bedding as well. So all of that bedding is food too for the
Right.
worm. So there are, I mean, just in the environment we've made for them inside of these bins, we've created an environment. It's like you ever heard that saying, and it doesn't matter what it is. Say like chocolate. I just love to take a bath in a bath of chocolate. You know
Right.
what I mean? Right? Or whatever your favorite thing is to eat or whatever,
Right.
I just love to take a bath in it, right? Well, that's what worms get to do. They
Right.
live and bathe and live within all of the food that they eat because of the just kind of the way they work and break things down and do what they do. So that was a big kind of lesson I learned, was it was a lot less feeding than I was thinking.
Okay.
So in order to really kind of get rid of some of the food scraps and things I was thinking about, it would take more bins and a bigger production in a sense, which wouldn't be bad though too, because I really, like I said, I really like getting the worm castings. I can use them in everything from all the house plants that I have here to all the plants outdoors, and just some sort of like a direct fertilization, like to scratch right in the top of each of like my containers, or
Right.
some of the elevated raised beds that we have and stuff. I can put them directly in there. But the best benefit I've found though is taking like handfuls of it, and you get these little kind of like filter bags for compost tea, which you could do with a really good, if you had like a really good compost and you were really had a good compost system, and you get really right down in there, you got that rich, steamy, just beautiful
Right.
stuff, you know what I mean, that comes out of there. You can take that stuff and put those in these bags as well. Get some filtered water in a 5-gallon bucket, stick it in there with a air hose.
Right.
Take some airlines that go to little air rocks, air
Right.
stones.
Right.
that you put into the bucket. You have a few of those that go in there, get a whole bunch of bubbling action going on, and let all that stuff go for like a day or so. And you're going to start getting microbes and all this life start feeding and creating life inside of this water and creating this just beautiful, and like I said, you can just use basic worm castings and just do a worm casting tea, and you're just going to get so much awesome life just bursting in this
Have you
5 gallons of water now that you can now take to all of your plants and water them with it
right,
over the whole plant. You're not just putting it in the soil or
right.
adding it in like that. You're literally just drenching your whole plants.
Have you ever looked at the Aero mixer? The
Air mixer?
Yeah, have you ever seen that?
No,
They're
no.
they're
It's
from
an
out.
automated compost tea thing.
So I use one, and what it is you can use them in 5 gallon buckets. You can use them in
Mhm.
275-gallon totes, trash cans, whatever you want, right?
Yeah.
And it puts so much oxygen. All right, just for an example,
Yeah.
275-gallon tote is what I brew my compost tea in.
Yeah.
It does such a good job of brewing and putting the oxygen in there, which oxygen is important to create more life forms in there, right? More
Yeah.
biology.
Yep.
It does such a good job of it that usually people will brew with air stones for like 24 hours, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm getting so much life that at 18 to 24 hours, mine are dying off because there's so many of them that they're starting to starve to death. They
Oh my
need more
gosh.
food. Right.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
between
exactly.
12 and 18 is when I have to use it
Yeah.
because
Are you
anything
feeding
longer
do you feed your compost tea, like, any sugars or anything?
that, well, in some of the things that I put in there, there was sugars, but
Yeah.
there wasn't enough. And I didn't learn
Yeah.
that until later on. So
Right.
now I'm going to start adding like molasses and stuff like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
to make sure that there's
That's what
enough
makes
in
it
there.
pretty.
Right. Yeah. Because it's blows my mind how fast it was. The Aero mixer was not really well known in the giant
Yeah,
growing
yeah.
community at all until last year when I used them, and now everybody's using it in the giant growing
I'll have to
community.
check those out and see
Yeah,
about that, that's for
they're
sure.
it's awesome, man. Because there's some videos and stuff I could send you. Like so, I was getting the slides and I was taking slides and putting them underneath the microscope and looking, and I
Mhm.
was just like, 6 to 12, I'm like double to triple my
Yeah.
my life. 12 to 18, I'm like 10 times as much, but then 18 to 24,
Mhm.
I'm dying off. I'm starting to go downhill.
Wow.
And I was like, and I don't know why, because everybody's like, you need to brew 24 hours. You better brew 24 hours. And I'm
Right.
like, if I brew 24 hours, they're dying,
Yeah, yeah,
And
exactly.
so what it
And
was
in
is
that
there.
way, that's something that's just in your system, and again, too, you have a different sort of, input or mechanism than what
Right.
most people are doing, so, yeah, it
Yep.
makes sense that you might see some sort of difference in timing as well.
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, that's really great, though, in the long run. Just get out there and harvest that stuff and get it to your plants a little bit sooner. If you can work the schedule out right for that, then, it doesn't matter if it's really usable at 18 hours versus 24 hours. You just make sure
Right.
that that timing works out from when you're ready to get that out on your plants.
That's right.
So you make sure that 18 hours lines up into one of your nice evenings, as everything's starting to cool down, and drench those
Hammer
plants
away.
and let them soak them
Right.
up all night and all that, and then give them a nice watering in the morning.
Right.
Boom, boom, boom.
They love it. They absolutely love it. Here's the
Yeah,
thing. People have this in their mind that they have got to feed fertilizer.
right,
Oh, I
exactly.
got to feed fertilizer or my plants ain't going to grow.
Mhm.
If it don't have NPK in it, they're
Yeah,
not going to grow. Well, yes, okay. So that is true as kind of true. It does need NPK. You do need nitrogen, potassium, or nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, right?
mhm,
And then you need your micros.
yep,
But if you're feeding them compost teas, you're getting a lot of that stuff.
Yeah,
and
because what I'm doing is I'm now making all that stuff available. It's now rich within my soil, so I
right,
don't need the inputs from these other things. And
right,
it's really one of those things that's just ingenious when you start to figure it out. And mind you, it's taken me years myself to really integrate and figure those sort of things out, even though I've kind of understood and tried to follow organic philosophies and that sort of stuff. But I was still doing, and I still got a lot left over. I might even put it in some garden beds just to finish up what I have. But, nice dry organic fertilizers are great, basic general
right,
fertilizers. Don't worry about whether it says it's for tomatoes or whatever. You know what I mean? If it's a
right,
nice dry organic fertilizer, those are some basic things that I think are decent enough to feed. They're inexpensive, that sort of stuff. I don't need expensive inputs. I don't need to go all these different intricate things. And
right,
unless maybe you're growing specialty plants, and specialty plants want specialty things, and you're going to tune them in, and you're really going to play around with that. Or if you're doing hydroponic systems and those sort of things where you're going to need more liquid type fertilizers and things like that, where you're going to get into that whole process. But man, if we're just out there growing food, whether it's out there in a bigger space, more of a farm space like what you got, or
right.
smaller city space like I've got, it really only takes just easy natural inputs
That's
for your
right.
garden. I can literally make my space, and that's one of the things we're going to be working on over the next year or two, as I have a new owner now who's into all of this, and who's
Right,
into the idea of me expanding this out and really showing what a full urban homestead farming type of system could look like, and then how we utilize all of those systems within itself to keep it going and
right.
rolling. You know what I mean?
Now,
As far as
it, it-
growing and any of those inputs. So I don't ever need fertilizers. Just now that I have the worms are going to be just fine to get started. But when I start
right,
getting the chickens, and when I start getting the other things, and I can start utilizing those inputs, we're
right.
even talking about maybe some rabbits.
There you go.
You know what
I
I
love
mean?
rabbit
So
manure.
so you have rabbit manure, we'll have chicken manures, we'll have, all from our own, uh, compost. The compost systems I've already got, we're going to expand and make those just a little bit better, and have all that sort of stuff. So with compost and these manures and these sort of things and just basic stuff, I don't ever need to buy anything.
Right,
And all of these spaces are going to be even 10 times better than what they are now. And I'll guarantee you, Ryan, they're pretty darn good. And
right,
I grow in alleyways in the
right,
ground. In the
right.
ground.
And it's crazy.
I've built that soil for a decade now to make sure it's really good,
Right,
you
and
know?
it's absolutely crazy and amazing what you've done out there
Yeah.
with that. I have a question about the worms. If somebody wanted to get set up on worms, they want to start worm farming, right?
Mhm.
What would you tell them? What setup? How many? What would you tell them?
Well, first thing I would say is don't wait to do it like I did for so long and continue to buy your worm castings. I'm saying go do it right now. I mean, like I said, I got a video. You can come to my channel, check out the video I had. It's a couple months back about putting together just a simple bin system. It cost me. I did the two bin thing. Uh, $10 a piece, so that's $20. Another $20 for the worms, and then all
Right,
the other inputs. I just used some paper bags that were shredded up, and some cocoa coir we put in there. I sprinkled in some eggshells. We put in just a little bit of like compost. What else was that in there? There was something else too that I'm not thinking of. But it's just simple, yeah. But even with just that right there would just be fine, and then we make it nice and fluffed up and put it in there, and you set your worms in, you let them get going, and they'll crawl around in there. Make it just a little wet at first, because they're gonna want it wet. Then
right,
after that, don't my advice is don't add any more water. Wet down the paper bag, cardboard, whatever, wet it down. But after that, I wouldn't add any more water to a bin system.
okay,
But and just add the worms in there and let them go, and they'll get going and they'll get eating. In fact, my advice now too would be, even if you followed my bin system for just making the bins and adding the worms, so I would follow that from the video. I think there's some other things I put in there as well as far as the bedding, but I would follow that. but I wouldn't feed them directly any sort of food scraps for at least the first like week or so.
Okay.
Yeah, because I let them start going like, oh, food, because they're gonna see, they, like I said, we just dropped them in a bath of
Right.
chocolate. You know what I
Right.
mean? They're gonna be like, yeah, they're gonna go crazy, especially coming out of like if you get them in the container, you get them from the mail or however you kind of procure them.
Right.
Red Wigglers
Okay.
or
That's what I
what
was going
I
to ask. Which ones?
that's what I ordered and I got for my bin system. They're the best. But I also do have an outdoor kind of worm system that I set up outdoors, that I use just regular outdoor worms, and they get up there and they go crazy. And I did take a handful of those and I made like a little 5-gallon bucket system to kind of test how they would do in a bucket system. And
Right.
I really haven't noticed much of a difference, even though people say there's a big difference.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know if, and this is kind of my thoughts are, is that there are tons of different types of worms that are existing out in our soil, our yards, or whatever. This system I have set up is kind of out by the alleyway, and I just feed it like the yard scraps, lawn cuttings, then food scraps, whatever leftover I got that I don't feed the ones indoors, and then I take those outdoors and I just kind of feed that in there. And my idea is that when you're feeding them like that or you're giving them those sort of things, all of the whatever varieties of worms are there, kind of the ones that want to eat like composting worms do,
Right.
come out of the fold
There you
and
go.
come up to do that. And they're the ones that are showing up to eat everything, out of all of the different worms. So
Right.
that's kind of my idea is I believe they probably are just as close to a good composting worm as you're going to get if you're feeding them and they're eating just like you
Right.
would feed in a system that you would have indoors as well, right?
Right.
But I keep them separate just to kind of see, because I just kind of see how they do, and
Like a
I
little
haven't
test.
noticed much of a difference. They eat about as fast as each other, so
That's pretty cool.
I don't know. Yeah, it's pretty
Now,
cool.
I've heard that worms will multiply really fast. Have you noticed that the worms that you started out with have grown in
They say
number?
it's like every 5, 6 weeks or so they should
Yeah.
double.
Yeah.
And one of the other things that they say, and I've noticed, I mean, I've definitely got more population. When I harvest those castings, I can now see egg egg
Right.
sacs, and I can see the little white little baby worms around and all of that
Okay.
in this stuff. So I know that they're repopulating and getting more and more even. But yeah, it should be doubled every like 6 weeks or so. I'm not exactly sure if
I
that's
think that's right.
exactly right, but it's pretty close. It's over a month, I believe. But yeah, they double in population based on the size of, like if you have a container, if you have them in a small container, they're not going to populate once they know that they don't have much more, and
Right.
there's only so much food that's available to the whole population. Then for some reason they self-populate and they don't reproduce anymore, and they don't get
Okay.
as far. I haven't been able to test that exactly myself to see that. The
Right.
only thing I know is that they do populate and do grow, and I do have a lot more worms now than when I started. In fact, this next time I harvest, I'll be separating worms to start a whole nother bin system with
That's what I was
those.
going to ask. Yeah.
Because then, yeah, and that's what you would do too if you wanted to make an even bigger system of it. Because, like I said, you can't have enough. If you can manage the system, have like 3, 4, even up, 6, 7, 8, however many bins, whatever you can manage. If you can manage that system, you can't have enough worm castings in my mind.
No, no, I love them. They're
Yeah,
absolutely they're good to put around your plants. They're good to make composting teas with. They're good to amend the soil with. There's just so
yeah,
many things that I like worm castings for, and you really can't get enough of them.
yeah. And they're free if you have this system set. Well, I mean, not free in the sense because, like I said, it did cost me 20
Right,
bucks for the bins. It did cost me 20 bucks for the worms themselves to get everything started up and all of that. So, in the long run, 40 bucks. But that 40 bucks for that was the last time I'll ever buy worm castings.
there you go. And usually what, like a 20-pound bag of them
I'd spend
are
like $80 on worm castings a year.
right. So
'Cause
there
I
you
buy,
go.
like, $20 bags, and I get, like, 3, 4 bags of those a year just to do the things I like to do with make some teas and some things,
Now,
and,
do you
yeah,
have to dry those worm castings out any, or can you just what are you doing when you harvest them? Do you
I
dry
try
them?
not I try not to let them dry out.
Okay,
Is my
just
Yeah, yeah. As far as I understand, if they do kinda dry a bit, it's not bad.
not
I
a
mean, just,
okay,
as far as I understand, but I try not to, because I want a kinda nice little moist. I don't want it super saturated. I don't want it, really wet, but I want a nice moist like you would want any, like, container soil to look like,
right,
and I want it to kinda maintain about that because that's where life is, the life is rolling around and doing its thing, and, all of that. It just makes sense. So I try not to let it dry out in a sense, but I mean, if there was some that was dry, I wouldn't, like, hesitate to try using it in a tea or something like that.
right. Okay.
Yeah.
So, what all do you got planted this year? What all peppers, tomatoes, and squash and all that stuff you got planted over there this year?
Yeah, yeah. Well, we've had a lot of stuff. I kinda skipped brassicas for my spring season this year as I had a lot of things going, so we really did kinda just keep in general the peppers and tomatoes. Uh, I d I did give try to some eggplants, which I'm trying again, so I think maybe I might have some starts about to pop up again a little bit late for what I'd like, but I didn't have success with some seeds before. We're gonna, I'll grow some other things, definitely some melons. I've got a couple of varieties of melons that I picked up at the National Heirloom Exposition, so
Oh
I wanna
yeah,
try those out, some really kinda nice orange flesh melons that I wanna try out. So I'll have those I'm gonna try out for sure. We'll do some squash, we'll have some different varieties of squash, and this is just here at my place that we're doing that'll have that done. I've got potatoes out there that should be. I mean, I planted those in just a little bit late too, but they should be popping up here any moment now, and, yeah, pretty much right now too, I'm just pretty much harvesting out the last of all of the lettuce that I have because I try to make sure to like all my beds are full of lettuce through the cool season and spinach and all of that sort of stuff. Spinach was gone weeks ago, but I have so this nice red variety that doesn't bolt, takes a while to bolt. It will bolt, but it takes a while.
right,
And then I got this other really cool variety. It's called I think it's called Tom Thumb, and it's a miniature head, kind of a miniature variety, more of like a leaf versus a head, but it's so compact.
right.
But it's really buttery, really delicious, and
Huh.
I think it's called Tom Thumb, and I got it from Baker Creek, and it's really good. So I try to grow that every year now, and I'm down to my last one.
And is it spinach?
No, it's like a little leaf
Oh,
kinda head lettuce,
okay. Kind of
like a green
like
leaf,
the
but really
Tim.
kinda compact and
Right,
small, so each head's just, like, really kind of just a nice small little. Yeah. There's that, and there's, like, another, um, something gem. I don't
little
know.
Jim.
Little gem. Yeah, little
Yeah.
gem. That one's not bad either.
No, I like those. They're
So
very good. They're
so
tiny.
that one's really good too, but, I didn't get very many of those this year. And, but I'm gonna buy more seed for next year, and I'll have definitely a ton more of that because I really like those 2 varieties. I like how they're small, and that really works for me because it's really
Right.
just me, and some people I share with as far as the stuff I consume, but it's always nice to, like, have, like, heads of lettuce right out there you just go grab each time you need fresh,
Yep.
So I'm down to the last of that, so I'll get the last one of those. I still got a bunch of the, Merlot lettuce. It's just
I love
really
Merlot.
Man, it's just great, and
Yeah,
again, too, it really resists bolting. I mean,
it
which is
does.
great, and,
Solar Flare does the same thing. The Solar
yeah,
Flare lettuce is like Merlot, but and it resists bolting too. Those are two that we plant here every year.
exactly, but, yeah, I'm gonna have to pull out and use them for something, though, real soon because I just need the space for other things that'll go in, some beans and some stuff I'm gonna because it's right on my this really trellis thing that I got, so So I got some plans for it. So they're gonna have to go real soon too, even though I got plenty of it right now. I think I might just leave a couple of heads and let them bolt and see if I can't collect some seed from them and
That's what I
see
do.
how that does. See how that does.
Yep,
But
that's what I do. It's really simple to collect the seeds off of them. So
mhm,
I'll let like two or three different heads, or if it's leaf, go up a
yep,
stalk and then get the seeds off of them and collect them and have them. That way, I don't have to keep buying seeds every year for some of this stuff, because
yeah.
some of it's just if you find a lot of stuff that you like and you constantly have to buy seeds for it, you're going to spend a lot of money.
Mhm. Can be. It's a lot better than buying starts and plant starts.
That's true. That is
I
very
mean,
true.
there's so much more I get from seed and all that. And there's just things that, I'm always trying wanting new and different varieties, and it's kind of cool to save some seed, which I do with some things, and I will. Definitely like radish. I love radishes, and so I grow a bunch of those, but I always leave a handful of them behind, usually even the best ones too, the ones I really want to eat. But I leave them in the garden and I let them go to seed. And then it's really cool is because if I leave like a good handful of them, then I'll get a few of them going to seed. Then I'll have a bunch of these like little bean pods, seed pods that form, and you get those really young, and they're
Right.
really delicious with that really cool, like little spicy radish flavor in a little bean pod, and those are great. You add those to your salads, you're gonna love it. I'm telling you, and it's so worth it to leave some of those radishes to go, and then you harvest all those up, get a bunch of those, and take as many of them as you can, but always leave like one plant to go to seed so that you can
Right.
save that good hand because it doesn't take too much seed. You know what I mean?
No,
One good plant's going to give you enough seed to get all your radish going next year anyways. But
absolutely.
you leave a few so you get the seed pods though. That's one of my favorites that I always like to do.
I did try that after you had talked about it before, and I tried it, and they were very good. I
They are
mean,
good.
very, very good.
Get them
And it
nice and
came
young. You don't want them to get like, you don't want them to really those seeds
right,
to really start forming and getting hard.
right.
So
You
if
want
you
them,
get
you
them
want them
nice and
soft
young,
and mushy.
yep.
Yeah.
And then you just mix them into a salad and let them just kind of be in there as a little surprise here and there as you're having a salad. And I love it. They're great.
Have you ever tried the wasabi radish?
No, I haven't tried the wasabi radish. I should. I should
It's
try that.
good. It's a very good radish. It's very hot, but it's
Yeah.
very good.
Is that a
Highly recommend.
daikon or is it a
It no, they just call it the wasabi radish. Now I will
yeah.
say this: it bolts very easy.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, like French breakfast and Scarlet Globe and some of the other ones. They don't really bolt that bad, right?
Mhm.
But wasabi, it bolts very, very easy. Like I was getting bolting in
Yeah.
September last year. Okay,
No
and I'm
doubt.
like, okay, this ain't good. But for the ones that did stick around, man, they were phenomenal,
Mhm.
phenomenal radishes. Like
I
a
did
lot.
tell you the I did tell you the story about my French breakfast radish that didn't bolt, right? Took about a
Uh,
year and it took a year and a half for it to go to seed,
yeah, I don't remember it all the way. Tell me again.
and it grew to be as bigger than a human baby. I mean, it was huge.
That's
It was
funny.
a French breakfast radish because, like I said, I always leave a handful to go to seed, and this one just wouldn't go to seed, and it just kept growing and kept getting bigger, and it looked like it was building muscle.
That's
It was
funny.
starting to rip, like, I mean, it was getting ripped at the gym or something. Kept getting bigger and bigger, but wouldn't produce a seed head. Just kept producing new, fresh greens, which I harvested too. I would take some fresh
Right,
greens off of it too. And which is another good thing about radishes too, is you can have some of those. I like them more the really young stuff, not any of the stuff that's
right.
really grown. But if you can get some of that really young radish greens, those are pretty good too. But anyways, um, it just wouldn't shoot up a flower head at all, and went through that whole summer, 100-degree weather, like no big deal. I'm like, what is this? It doesn't make any sense. And then goes through that whole fall, winter time, just nothing. And then come the next spring and some spring and spring, I was like, okay, now you're gonna, and no, just started producing more green.
That's
And
insane.
and then it was towards the middle of summer, it finally started sprouting a seed and went
That's
to
crazy.
and I believe I made sure I kept those, and I kept the seed, and I used it for the ones I grew the next year, and nothing. No, no, it didn't
No
get
different.
any. Nothing. I didn't get any with any of those traits, or it didn't repeat that sort of thing with any of the other ones that I got from
That's
the
weird,
seed I
isn't it?
got with it. But it was crazy though. It was huge. I mean, it was huge, man.
I wonder how much it
Like you
weighs.
talk about giants, I would have loved to. I mean, I would have loved to have like been able to submit that to some contest. Never did think about it or anything, but it was
Did you
20,
weigh it?
30 pounds, maybe it
Whoa,
probably could have got up to 25, 30 pounds.
that's crazy. A French breakfast too. That's crazy. Did you
Yeah.
document any of that on your
No,
video?
man. No, I have pictures of it though.
That's
I
insane, man.
do have some pictures somewhere
You should really share that out,
of
man.
different one of different. I do have pictures somewhere where it's different sizes of it too, where it's like, when about mid range and then when it's bigger. So I've kind of got documentation of its life cycle in a sense.
Right.
I
You should
never did
definitely.
weigh it, and I never did do it. I didn't think about it any more than how amazing that whole thing was.
Right.
I never thought of like, oh, I should try to submit this, or who's got the world record for French breakfast radish. I'll
Right.
guarantee it broke any record in the world.
I know, man. That would have been awesome because
I know it would have,
that
but that's all right. It's all right.
you should still share that out though. Share like the pictures and stuff out of it,
Yeah, I
man,
had
because
friends who were here to see it too and couldn't believe it. In
that
fact,
would be very cool.
I'm pretty sure that if I look back, I could find the videos too, where I probably showed it in my videos on my channel.
Oh man, that'd been cool. That would be very cool, man. Because if you would like just put like some sort of montage together of, hey, look, this is the French breakfast radish I grew, and blah blah blah,
Yeah.
and here's some pictures, here's some
I
video
do
clips.
wish I would have weighed it though. It would have been nice to have the weights on it and see what
Right,
it actually was. But
that's
like I said,
cool.
it was huge, and I can only just imagine it was
Did you name it like
somewhere
Arnold?
between 20 and 30 pounds.
Did you name it Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Right. I know. I should. No, I never. And again, too, I'm just terrible at naming things. People ask me about naming some stuff, and I never do name things. But that's basically the vision I had was this radish going to the gym. You know what I
Right.
mean? And then it would come back and put itself back into the garden. It would just be just even more ripped the next day.
That's
And then
funny.
when I'll be like, and I'll check it out. I'll be like, whoa, what's going on? And then when I leave, it takes off, goes back to the gym,
Right.
pump it out
Pumps.
some more, gets back into the garden, puts its back self back in, all more ripped again. As I come
That's
out and look at it again, be like, what?
what was you feeding at that time?
I don't even know. It's just I'm sure it was probably again too. I've never really fed more than an organic dry fertilizer.
Right.
I've just tried different brands, and different companies have had me do different things and try them out. Ivy Organic, which I totally stand by, and their fertilizer is really great. I really recommend it for people who do want to use fertilizers and don't have other inputs
Right.
for sure. Um, I definitely recommend their 3-in-1 plant guard. I mean, that's just I'm telling you, everybody should have this stuff, that stuff. But inputs, I mean, as far as that goes, I like the idea of becoming more self-sustainable and being able to take care of them and not have to put things in there because I'm, what I mean, encouraging soil life really,
Right.
and making sure that and that was one of the things too. And I was just out showing the new owner because I was back planting and putting in the tomatoes on the back fence area along the alleyway back there, and I showed him a part where I hadn't been doing anything with any of the soil. And I was, look at this soil right here, and I says, now come over here. It's this on the same line,
Right.
but over here where I've been managing and doing this stuff for, going on 10 years now, I put my hand down in there and could get my hand all the way down up past my wrist, just
Wow.
pushing my hand down into the soil. And I was like, that's why and what I do in managing the soil. So to make sure that that's the type of soil texture I have,
Right.
because that's just,
No compaction.
it's great. It's great stuff.
Right. So Do you think that soil biology and the microbes, within that is going to be more beneficial than the NPK input?
Yeah, well, yeah, and if you're putting in the right, organic material or creating a nice organic
Right,
input cycle in your soil through the, and if you think about nature, how nature just drops all the leaves, and then the leaves break down, and all of that stuff that breaks down just goes into the soil, and then it eventually just keeps breaking its way down and goes
right,
down and just keeps going down. So we're just trying to put stuff on top, more and more organic material on top, mulch real good with something like, for me, um, my beds started doing a lot better and started doing a lot better years ago as I started really utilizing all the leaves that were coming off of my trees,
right,
and I started, figuring out to mulch them down a lot better. And now I'm even collecting leaves from neighbors and other trees from around the neighborhood, and I bring their bags over to my place, and I use the lawnmower and I mulch them down really good. And then I put them right back in the bags. Now I got a whole bunch of bags. I get everything covered up, and then I have a whole bunch of extra bags to keep me going through the rest of the year, to keep
right,
a good mulch on top of there. And again, too, all that stuff is constantly breaking down and working its way down into the soil. And then all I'm feeding is this compost tea. I'm adding more microbes. I'm adding more of this life and biology that get to work their way down in there and do more work on all those leaves and all of that stuff, and just enriching everything that in the long run, you don't have to really worry. I haven't tested my soil in years.
really,
No, I just don't, why would I worry about it,
right,
Everything grows great. The soil is great, and I can tell that mainly because of my experience though too. I wouldn't say to a new gardener, "Oh, hey, this and that." That would
right,
be first one of my first lessons though, is that what you're trying to do is build great soil, not great plants.
right,
Because the soil's going to make great plants. That's
uh,
not that's You're just going to add water.
right, absolutely,
You know what I mean?
absolutely,
And then that's it. I mean, and the compost tea, of course, because
right,
but with those inputs, and then again, too, even 10 times more when I start inputting chickens and stuff, or, which is great for people who have bigger places and homesteads and have the ability and already have those sorts of inputs. For me in the city, though, that's a great additional input I'm going to be able to do to the areas that I have, add to the soil overall that I'm using on all of my containers throughout all my spaces too.
right,
So, like, right now, I got, like, this big pile of soil. So everything that I wasn't using or is being recycled, I put all my recycled soil up in there. And then, like, what I'm doing right now is I'm taking all of that compost. I have a standing compost system off the alleyway. I also have a barrel compost system. So I take all that compost and add it to all of that, mix that
right,
up, and that's what I put on top of all of everything that's growing, on all the containers everywhere, and I top everything off. And then after that, it's just the worm teas, and that's all I have to
that's
do.
awesome.
It's
S- ha-
compost, worm teas, great soil, whether I'm in containers or I'm in ground.
right. Have you seen
Um,
a decrease in your disease pressure and pest pressure now being more organic?
well, what I will say is that, yeah, in a sense too, it's health of some plants. I mean, again, too, like I said, gardener error can create some issues.
Right,
Like,
right,
so right now to get certain things growing. So these weaker plants are more sustainable, or susceptible, susceptible to some of these things. So I have to be really careful right now to kind of mind things for them a bit until they do get some strength. But once I get good, strong plants, or any of the other plants are good and strong and growing well, yeah, pest pressure goes way down.
that's
It
awesome.
really goes down. And again, too, what I'm encouraging all the other sort of things too in my garden system too. I'm encouraging wasps and bees, and and other predatory insects. I've got praying mantis egg sacs around that should be popping out baby praying mantis anytime now, so they'll be praying throughout the garden. All sorts of these other things that I encourage to kind of help out as well. and then for me too, because I'm really a no spray person either too. So I'm really like no inputs, no sprays, no inputs. I'm all natural as possible.
Right.
And so really, when it comes to like any sort of pest pressures I have, it's me and a hose.
There
I'll
you
start
go.
dousing plants and dousing things off, or doing what I can to try to disrupt the cycle of whatever
Right.
pest is giving me pressure. Most of the time it's aphids. Aphids will try their hand at a lot of stuff. They do like your weaker plants again, and they'll be more susceptible, but they'll come after some other stuff too. So you got to still keep an eye out, even in a good, healthy garden.
Right.
Things will
Absolutely.
things will try to get through, and you keep as long as you keep your eye out, keep things washed down nice and good. I find again too, like you're saying and asking about though, is that when I'm doing the foliar feeding with my compost tea,
Right.
that's keeps a lot of pests off as well too. I mean, it's kind of almost like
A barrier.
a barrier. Yeah.
Yep.
Doesn't last very long, but
Right. But it does. I mean,
kind of
well,
like a little, momentary barrier.
it from what I've seen, it does create that barrier from pests, but also from the disease too. And I think a lot of times the reason why it changes for the disease is because it's changing the pH, because a lot of things that are diseased need certain pHs on the leaf in order to procreate or to infest or whatever you want to call it on the leaf. You know what I mean? Uh,
Yeah.
Powdery mildew being one of the most prolific things here in West Virginia where
Mhm.
I'm at,
Me too.
because of
I
our
get it.
humidity and stuff. But as soon as you change the pH of that leaf, it's like, yeah, no, we can't live here. It's up or
Mhm.
down. It don't matter which way it goes. It don't want to
Yeah.
survive. But if you don't change the pH of that leaf, via compost teas, which I absolutely love to do that with, um,
Yeah.
it you don't have a problem, because like me, I'm spraying, I'm applying compost teas every other day to every 3 days.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
never, I don't like to go 3 days. I like to go every other day and
Well,
put
there you
compost
go.
tea down,
That's
and it works. And from what I seen last year, the benefit, the upside was way more than
yeah.
any downside to it. I had a lot of people going, "Why would you do that? You only need to do it once a week." Well, you got to think, I've got a really big area here. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I'm trying to grow stuff as big as possible.
Yeah.
There's a lot of life in that soil, but I'm also, not
Mhm.
only am I trying to grow something big, not only am I trying to cover those plants with a barrier,
Yeah.
that the dew washes off, right?
Yep.
I'm also trying to change that soil for the better. And the
Mm.
more life forms that are in that soil, the faster it changes.
Yep.
I can tell a huge difference in my giant pumpkin patch where I hammered compost teas last year. And I just took down a giant cover crop of turnip that was over 3 foot
Yeah.
tall.
Wow.
Okay. I don't know if you've seen it on my Instagram or not, but it was
Just
literally up, the
monsters.
leaves were up to my belly button, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I could have went in there and laid down. You'd have never seen me. Okay. That was how, and it's huge. So
That's great.
I was going to skip this year putting giant pumpkins in there. And I was going to put giant field pumpkins and watermelons and some other giants, but not Atlantic giant pumpkins, not 1,000+ pound pumpkins in there. I was going to skip it this year. And
Yeah.
when I went walking through there today, and
Yeah.
it's been like 2 or 3 days since I tilled all that turnip in,
Yeah.
I was like, I gotta at least grow one giant pumpkin in here.
Yeah.
Because this
Take
is this
advantage of that, just whatever's possible, and that sort of great makeup that's going on. I mean, if
right,
things are flourishing like that, then there's a reason.
right, absolutely. So I
Yeah.
was just like, I gotta try at least one giant pumpkin in here. So I put one of my giant pumpkins in there. Now the rest of it, I'll let other things grow, watermelon, and
Mhm.
bushel gourd and giant field pumpkin and stuff. I'll let that other stuff grow in there, just to have fun or whatever. But
Yeah.
I mean, I was thoroughly impressed. And here's what else I got to thinking. Why not add a cover crop of turnip out in front of everything that's growing and till it in as it grows. So I'm going to go get more turnip seed and I'm going to throw more turnip seeds out all around the plants. And as
Yeah.
they grow forward, I'm going to till those turnips back under. All right. Because
Yeah.
I don't want my soil to be bare. I don't want weeds growing in their place. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I'm just going to go get more tomorrow. I'm going to get more turnip seeds. I'm going to plant more turnips in there, let them do their thing, till them in as the plant grows and then
Yeah.
fills in that area. That way we don't have bare soil,
Yeah.
and the microbes will be active the entire time, you know. So
Exactly.
do you do that kind of stuff? Do you put cover crop down and then as your plants grow or get bigger, you know, you or do you like fill in
No.
every nook and cranny so they're not really cover crops? You're just like planting a tomato and maybe root crops around that tomato plant or something like that. Do you do that?
I try to put things in as much as I can around things, for most part. Like I said, I'm just, more than cover crops. I'm just, even like when I break down and don't use beds in the wintertime after I've done growing whatever I've grown in the summertime. Like I said, I'll take again those excess bags of leaves and I'll just make sure I'm heavy mulching everything to cover up the soil and again allow that process to kind of break down and do that in a kind of a more natural way than what you're doing, more instantaneous and really getting in there and digging that
Right,
in, which is really great. And I haven't thought about doing any sort of thing like that. I mean, it would be fun, I suppose, to test some little area out, maybe out there in the back and see what it would be like or something to cover crop an area and try it out for like and see how
right,
applicable it would be in smaller spaces like what I'm using.
right.
But yeah, no, I mean, if I was in a bigger system like what you have, though, I mean, that's exactly what I'd be doing, though.
That okay,
I
because
mean,
like
that just makes so much sense. Makes too much sense for sure.
right.
And you
Yeah,
can't go and get enough leaves to cover everything, and you know what I mean.
no,
So you might as well have like like a living mulch, living a cover crop to keep the soil covered, keep the not just covered though, and you just mentioned it as well too, but keep the soil active.
right,
You know
exactly.
what I mean? And, as long as there's roots down there doing something.
Right, because Mother Nature don't like to be bare, you know?
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
she she likes to be covered, you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
the microbes that's living in the soil have to have something to work on, right? They have to have
Yep.
something to actively, you know, roots to actively create their rhizomes and stuff to be living and thriving and doing their thing. What I thought was cool today is when I dug my hole to transplant the pumpkin. I always dig me like a 3 by 3 by 2 foot deep hole.
Yeah.
Well, I had turnips. Now this is hard packed clay. I went down
No,
to the hard pan, okay, and
wow.
I had turnips because I was like, "What is that?" I was like, "It must be a tree root or something, right?" And I'm like trying and breaking up. No, it was turnip bottoms
Trying
that
to
had all the way down through the hard pan and were breaking that up, right?
yeah,
So that was
trying to
another
find
thing,
their way up or some way, didn't know where they were, but they were all the way down there, got turned
right?
in.
Yep,
That's
and
great.
right, so I was like, "Yes, this is awesome. This is what I want." And I made sure to video that because I was like, "What is it, like tree roots or what?" Because it looked like tree roots at first. I
Yeah.
thought,
Yeah.
and then I was like, "No, hang on a minute. They're growing vertical. If tree roots don't grow vertical, they grow horizontal, you know." And I'm like,
That's
pop,
great.
and there they are, you know. And I'm like, "Oh, those were," you know. So now I'm even more excited to grow in that area because they've got, think of all the worms that are going to be going in there to actively
Yeah.
seek out all those turnip bottoms that are
Mhm.
deep within that soil to eat and
Yeah, because 'cause
decompose.
they'll try to grow for a while, but there's at some point it's gonna give up.
Right.
Because it's not finding any light, it's getting
Right.
these other things, but, it's gonna need that one, it does need light ultimately.
Right.
They need to photosynthesize, they need to be able to do that sort of stuff to produce seed, which is its ultimate goal.
Right.
Once that starts coming to the point, it's going to give up, and then the plant gives up, starts dying and decaying down there, and the worms yeah, like I said,
Yep.
and then just is breaking down all throughout the system, creating some of these little caverns in your soil where life
Exactly.
is starting to do its thing, and will eventually, yeah, like I said, it eventually start just breaking down all that clay. And that's the thing too. That's the remedy to clay is more organic material
Yep.
Problem is it's going to take time. It's got to break down. Like you said, you got to keep doing that process
Over and
over
over
and
and
over.
over.
Keep adding that stuff in. Right on that top layer, though. You don't have to go much more further down than that top layer,
Right.
because you want it to naturally do its thing and break down, break down, break down, break down, and break down. And it
Right.
will continue to get more and more each and every year,
Yep.
deeper and deeper. You'll have more and more access to just putting
Keep
things right
going.
in.
Yep.
Yep.
And then at like the radishes or the turnips or whatever we end up using in the future, those are going to
Mhm.
create those caverns, like you were saying, to where
Yeah.
that life is going to go in and fill in all those cavities. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then that's going to help break up that clay and stuff. Here's what I
Mhm.
thought's funny.
Yep.
I've been growing on here since 2020. Oh, excuse me, 2019. I grew in 2018, skipped 2019, grew in 2020, and been growing in 2020 ever since here on this property.
Yeah.
This year, I have found tons of Indian arrowheads and
Oh wow.
flakes and stuff, right? And
Yeah.
my neighbor was like, "Well, do you think the reason why you're getting those arrowheads and stuff now is because you got that big tractor and you're tilling it with that tractor now?" And I said, "No, I don't think that's it. What I think is my soil dynamics are changing so much
Yeah.
that it's literally getting looser down there and coming up to the surface. Just
Could
like
be.
with rock.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
rocks you can till the same spot over again, or you can broad fork it over and over again, and next year you'll still find more rocks. You know,
Yeah.
because they work their way up to the top, right? And so I think that's what we're seeing. We're starting to see a lot of that change happen in my soil to where things that are locked down deep, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
8 to 10 inches are now starting to come up closer to the surface to where when I do till or I do broad fork, it's popping it up and then I'm finding it at the surface later on. So
Yeah.
it is definitely changing a lot.
Yeah. And that's great work, man. Like I said, and that's what it's all about, man. And being able to do that in our spaces, your home, your homestead, you got a bigger place, you're able to do that cover cropping and doing that sort of thing like that, just building better and better soil. So even in a big place like that versus even a small place where I've got containers and things like that, and we're still trying to achieve that same objective in building better and better soil life. And that's once we accomplish that, soil managers,
Right.
that's what our gardening entails. That's what makes us gardeners, in a sense, is being great soil managers. And then at that point in time, you know then we look like we're really successful because the
Right.
plants are all booming and looking great and everything. And
We look like rock
then you
stars.
can really brag, but ultimately it's all the soil doing the work and everything. And then
Absolutely.
the genetics hopefully are taken over at that point. And then we're just kind of like doing our little thing by just like, oh, here's a little worm tea, and
Right.
then here we've done something,
Yep.
right? But that's
So
it, and it's years of work though too. So I don't want to like minimize it and everything, because
no.
it's like it really is. It's years of work, whether you're doing small space home gardening or you're doing a larger space as well too. In developing and building our soil takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort, takes that work to make sure that we're being those good soil managers. And then we reap the rewards from it, if I can get that
Right.
out.
Right. Um, do you
I just
use
wanted to say
any?
hi real quick to Adam. I saw he was in here. Great to
Oh,
see you.
yep. And Troy was in here and
Troy, yeah, there's our
Light.
Troy,
Yep.
low family adventures.
Yep.
Good to
So
see everybody here.
everybody that's come in, thank you guys for stopping in. Do you ever use like lactobacilluses or azos or mycorrhizas and stuff like that in your soil or in any of your stuff?
Well, early on, as I was like testing and playing around with all sorts of stuff and trying stuff out, I spent many years kind of, playing out with these types of fertilizers or, mycorrhiza and all that. And I wouldn't say that they're not helpful, which I think, having additives like that, or just, whatever you can put in and whatever inputs you can afford to do to make your soil better, more power for sure. Absolutely. And
Right.
I wouldn't talk them down in a sense.
Right.
It's just I ultimately in the long run found that I wasn't needing that extra you know what I mean? It
Right.
was
Right.
it was
Right.
less my gardening became less expensive when I just tried to find, just a general ways of like like we've been talking about building my soil and stuff.
Right.
And then all
So
those things start to form and those sort of things start
that's
to
what I was going to
happen.
ask you.
You know what I
Do
mean? That
do they
happens
naturally
naturally then.
come?
Yeah, it'd be naturally, yeah.
Okay.
Maybe not everything that we could get in there, and some of those things are extra additives that if you're, like I said, if you can and you want, and most certainly, if you can afford to, have those extra inputs, for sure.
Right.
Why not inoculate it super, like, we both, got to interview and a good friend of mine, John Kohler,
Yep.
you know? If you ever watch any of his videos, he's super inoculating things with anything, I go and I help him out, and I put plants in his backyard garden or his front yard garden, so I go and help him out, and he's got a pail of stuff, and it's got a little bottle of this, a little bottle of that, a little bottle of this. You add a little bit of this, you add a little bit of that, you add a little bit of this to each hole, and then you go to the next one, a little bit of this, a
Right.
little bit of that, and I was like, and that's the way he wants to do it, and I'm like, that I get it, I respect it, and I think, if you can, and you want to really supercharge your garden, then do that. I mean, if so, then I would totally encourage people to as well. If you really want to build up and have extra stuff really just pumping in your garden, in your soil, go, to continue with the idea of compost tea, is go to John's good friend Josh Cunnings at Boogie Brew.
Boogie. Yep. Boogie Brew. Yep.
Go get some of his high power, high octane compost tea stuff. You know what I mean? It's got a base and it's got a boost, and it's two different parts, and you put them together inside that bag. You stick it in there, man. You get, like, you talk about like how many hours it takes. You got supercharged stuff that's ready to eat in just a few hours.
Right.
You got to feed that stuff. You got life booming. It's just supercharged with all these other extra additives and everything. And if you want to go that route. But even Josh will tell you that your garden's going to do just fine with a nice simple worm tea, you
Right.
know.
Right.
So,
Right. Exactly. It's
so
just
when it comes down to it,
how deep do you want to get? You know,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
how much extra do you want to be? Right. I mean,
Yeah, 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 and there's
yeah.
nothing wrong with that either, and
No.
like I
No.
said, there's nothing most all of that stuff is, organic inputs are gonna be just fine, and like I said, it's gonna be a little extra supercharge, adding mycorrhiza, to get it there, but if I've got good organic material in my soil, in that top layer of my soil, and it's just, seasonally just been working and working, that mycorrhiza is there. You
Right.
got you got whole networks of that stuff just working its way everywhere. It's just amazing.
Right. You know, I always say my plants are a little bougie anyhow. You know, they got to have all that extra stuff. It's not necessary. It's not needed, but they like it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So what all last question, and I'll let you get off of here because I know we've been on for a while. What
No,
is
no
the
problem.
huh?
I said no problem.
Okay. So what do you got planned for this season? What all you got going? Like, I know we talked about some of the plants you're going to grow and stuff, but what's your plans? I know we talked about some of the chickens, the rabbits and stuff, but
Yeah, yeah.
overall, where do you want to be come fall?
Come fall, I want to be prepared at least come fall to start putting in the beds that we're going to do out in the front yards. So we're going to expand, and got some ideas of doing that. Just trying to put together a couple of last minute things. So hopefully we'll get all of that stuff together and start putting those together and getting that done. That's really what I'm really looking forward to doing, is kind of transforming from a front yard, a regular neighborhood front yard, to having some garden beds out there, and really kind of expanding our um, ability to grow more food and also be able to share as well too, because I'm bringing in my new owners too, because they're really into everything that we're going and
Right.
doing. They're now my neighbors too, and this is a lot of this space is as well their space too. So it's also to be able to bring them in and show them and give them spaces and have them gardening and growing and all of that, but as well also being able to expand the content that I have available on my channel to really kind of show people how we've done it, how we accomplish some of the things that we're going to do, because it really is my objective over the next year and into next year to really turn this into kind of a really kind of almost like a walk through urban homestead,
That'd be
because
great.
I because we're on the alleyways. I got these alleyways. It's really great. I got people just walking through all the time, just on walks around, and they can see that we got something growing. So it kind of there's piqued interest, so they start walking their way through to see everything. But I've got this whole thing going in the back patio area that's just right off of where people walk by. It goes around a corner into another alleyway, which we have all this other stuff, which again will eventually be hopefully chickens, bees. We're going to get back on the rooftop. That's
Oh
definitely
yeah.
my goal this summer, though. Right now, is to start putting together some more of our 5-gallon Wiccan buckets. Procuring some more of those as we speak to get that set up there. I might not necessarily grow anything up there quite yet this year, but I'm gonna maybe we'll get into some fall stuff. So maybe I'll get up there and put some broccoli or something like that, and maybe some cabbages and see what we can do during the fall up there. But I
Right.
want to get that rooftop garden going again, and then maybe I'm gonna put some bee boxes up there and have some bees. Start
That'd be
generating
very
some of our
cool.
own honey, have our own bees floating around all of our gardens and spaces, just pollinating all of our stuff. And just really, hopefully, what I want to do is just really get in a good cycle, get everything built up. And like I said, it's very public. So
Right.
then what I want to start doing is reaching out to the community, the local, there's a YMCA that's actually just a couple blocks right down the street from me. So maybe I'll work with them or something like that. I'm just going to reach out to some people and see what maybe we can do to kind of bring people in and through here and show them as well what's kind of possible in kind of creating some level of self sustainability and
Right.
in the city,
Right.
which people, a lot of people could do a little bit more with bigger backyards and bigger spaces. But I'm
Right.
very fortunate to have something that's very public facing that people could walk through and see, so I can show them and I can kind of, give them an idea of exactly what I'm doing.
Right.
um, we'll work on some local classes is something I want to do too. Because again, I've been very kind of with the channel and everything has been kind of like, it's international in a way. I've got people who watch me, all over the world and watch
Right.
different things that we're doing, all over the world and everything. And so some of the things that I'm getting to do here and getting to be able to visualize what my spaces can be more so than what they have been just for me, and what I've been sharing through my channel so far is now what I do to create something that's educational, that I can now kind of give back a little bit locally even, but at the
Right.
same time make videos and show people as well through the channel and all that sort of stuff what we're doing, that progression, individual ideas and videos and things that we're working on and all of that as well, but be able to do it on a local level and contribute more locally as well too. And
Right.
I think that's really where all the gold is and everything that we're doing right now. So
Absolutely.
I'm kind of digging for that gold right now. But no, we got a lot of great things going on though too. I definitely it'd be amiss to not hype up our show and our channel
It's a
and all
great
of that
show.
sort of stuff. We just got to have you on just a couple weeks back there. Well, that was pretty
Yep.
fun, right?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I loved it. I love being on your show. So definitely a lot
Yeah,
of fun. And I love watching it too. It's a great show. You got a lot of great guests on there.
yeah, and that's the thing, and it just keeps seems to get better and better as we go. I'm still in negotiations with some other really good and really great guests, some big ones that have been at the top of my lists. Because you start a show like this, and you have an idea to do something like this, and of course, I've been just a YouTube gardening nerd. I've been following tons of gardening channels and different people doing things for years. And so when you start this idea, like I want to interview gardeners, I want to interview other YouTubers and people who are in the gardening space and do a whole show, a talk show, variety kind of talk show based on gardening and all of that. You got to build a list of who do you want on there, and
Right.
so I've been knocking off some of those that are kind of close to the top of the list, and I literally just knocked off the very top. The
Right.
very top is going to be on my show on June 8th, and I have a hard time saying this, but it's already, if you go to my channel, you can already see we've already announced it. We've already told everybody, but the very top of my list was a guy I started following early on because, like I said, got into gardening, got into growing, but the first thing I did was went to YouTube to learn how to do certain things.
Right.
And I found a couple of channels that I really like. Definitely one, a retired gardener, Ray Browning, Praxis 55712, just one of my favorites from early days of YouTube, and before a lot of other creators have been out, since COVID and all of that too.
Right.
But definitely those old school ones. But I found this guy in his channel, and he just had the greatest personality, and probably even more so was because he was from Australia.
I love
And
this guy too. He's awesome.
and he just has this just Australian personality, boisterous, just out there, just really enthusiastic and passionate about what he's doing.
And does a heck of a job growing too in those raised beds. He's phenomenal at growing in those things.
And even more so, though, I mean, he had a few of them when I first started watching his channel, but he was really doing like the homesteading thing, he had all of his birds, and really a orchard too was a big thing.
Yep.
It was his orchard and his trees and all that sort of stuff. And but Mark Valencia from Self Sufficient Me, I started following him. He had about 15, about as many subscribers as I have now,
Right.
is what he had at that time. Years before I even thought about starting my own YouTube channel, So, and I just remember back in those days and those early days of his channel and him putting together stuff. I just really enjoyed watching him because of his personality and all of that. But I remember a time where he just kind of disappeared and stopped putting out videos. And he put out one video kind of in between disappearing there, and was just kind of like, I just don't know if I'm going to keep doing this. But if I'm going to keep doing it, I have to jump all in. You know what I mean? So I
Right.
think he was just taking input from people. What do people think? That sort of thing, as he was kind of backing away because it was taking time and he had to make decisions in his life on what to do. And again, too, like I said, mind you, this is 15,000 subscribers, just
Right.
small. Like I have a small YouTube channel, and and so he's making these decisions, but I remember him coming back and he was like, I've decided I'm going to keep going with this channel and I'm going to put my whole heart into it. This is what I'm going to do. This is going to be my life. This is going to be, this is going to be the thing. And I remember when that happened, it was just so inspiring. I just remember that time and all that. And I can't wait to have him on my show and talk to him about this because it was really one of the most inspiring points of what I follow and everybody I follow through gardening and YouTube, and just seeing him do that, and then just not only see him do that, make that declaration and do that, but then to go forward and do what he did. We're talking
Right.
15,000. He's got almost 2.5 million subscribers.
He's huge.
Two
Huge.
and a half million. And I'll tell you, Ryan, I do believe, as I was keeping track the best I could, I do believe he was the first one to clock that million, though, out of the gardening community.
Right.
There was another channel, and I think it was a channel, and I can't quite remember what the name of it was, but you never saw the person in this channel. You never
Right.
saw the person, and you never seen the face. You heard the voice. They showed things and stuff, but you never saw the person, so you never knew who that was. And I think maybe that might have, it could either be him or that channel that was the one that hit the million
Right.
first. But then soon after, it was like Kevin from Epic
Yeah.
Gardening
Yep.
and M.I.
M.I.
Gardner,
Gardner.
James
Yep.
Prigioni, bunches of others who've hit that million mark as well too. John should be there any moment now. Any moment now, he's going to get that million plaque.
Right.
I can't wait for him to do that. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Very cool.
But yeah, It's gonna be great, to have Mark on again too. Like I said, he was the one I wrote down. I was like, I'll never be able to get this guy, but he's at the top of my list.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I wanted I just to him he was so inspiring in what he did and how he accomplished everything and all that too. Kevin as well, all everybody as well too, and those guys will eventually be on my show.
Right. It's
I tell
just you
myself
gotta
I tell myself
you
that all
gotta
the
hammer,
time.
hammer, hammer some of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Like I said,
really about
it's taken like 3 years to get through to Mark and to finally
right,
you know it took and even it's even taken I think about 8 months from like point of real first contact where he finally was like, yeah, hey, I'll come on the show. When I first got that sort of response from him, that was
right.
about 8 months ago.
Yep.
So it's taken months and months and months to work something out and to get something together and everything. And he's really on the show at this point in time because it's middle of winter for him.
Right.
It's still a tropical winter, so
Right. Right.
he's not hurting at all.
No, no.
But it's still a slower time and all of that, even for him,
Right.
So,
Yeah,
but yeah,
their
that's
tropical
awesome
winter is like our summers here. You know what I mean?
for sure. But yeah, even the cooler thing though too is that you, like I said, you even know like through John is just, a lot of the bigger guys want to do a pre-recorded interview, and which is great, which is fine. It's to get
Right.
a big guy like James Prigioni on my show, I'm happy to do a pre-recorded interview, or
Yep.
like having Jer Gettle, from Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Company was, I
Yep.
really admire him. I admire his company, that sort of thing. To have him on the show had to be pre-recorded, so I'll do those sort of pre-recorded. It's a live show. I really want people on live. In fact, I'm going to be bugging John for the next appearance to be live.
Right.
But that was the one thing that Mark was just right from the get go. Was like, yeah, no problem, live, man. For him, I'm telling you, he's gonna be joining us from the future.
Right.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's gonna be for me and the show. We're gonna start an hour later because just to make sure the time is just a little bit, we're gonna start the show an hour later, so it'll be noon Pacific time for us on the show, but on Saturday. But
Right.
for Mark, it's Sunday, 5 a.m. in the morning.
Right. Ain't that crazy?
So he's a whole like it's the next day, 5 a.m. for him, and
Right.
it's it's noon for me the day before. So it's kind of interesting. But he was like, let's work it out. Let's get it on there so it can be on live. So, to have Mark Valencia on the show live is gonna be huge.
That's very, very
So
cool.
I hope
Very
everybody,
cool.
who's here and all of that, jumps on over the channel. And I've already got the preview up for the live stream, so you can click the reminder there and get reminded of the show if you want to make sure that you're there and jump in the conversation and get to because that's one of the things too, especially for Mark Valencia though too. There's not very many interviews to find of him
No. Mm-mm.
where you get to hear and talk to him and find out about I'm going to dig into his garden story. I want to find out about how and what's going on. Is again too something you'd be interested in too is his Australian military service.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely. That'd be cool.
about that and stuff. And to really just kind of dig into a story and find out and learn just a little bit more about who he is and
He
all of
seems like
that.
a really awesome guy. I would like
Yeah,
to interview him too. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Um,
It's just I can imagine it's gonna be great. I'm as nervous as I'll get out. This is probably as nervous as I'll be to interview anybody on the show, which I just want I always tell people is I get nervous almost every show still. And I've been doing it a couple of years now. I've interviewed. I think I was trying to count it up though, but I think I'm definitely well over 100 unique interviews now
that's
that I've
cool,
done.
man.
Yeah, unique guests. I've done
Right.
over 100.
That's very
Which is
cool.
awesome, and some great ones too. Like I said, you can just go over to our channel and flip through the live stream section, and you'll see all of them there and see all those awesome people that we've had conversations with. And then not only that, you got to think too is that there was the period during most of last year, but our first 10 shows and then all of the shows so far this year all have other guests as well. You know what I mean? So
Right.
we have a front guest like you were on for the "Are You Following Me" segment, which is a front segment that we have, and then we have a longer, more featured guest that we have for our show. So you see
Right.
all the featured guests, but for many of the shows, there's also other guests that are on as well too. That
And you're
that we
doing
get
a
to.
Sunday show too, right?
And we do our Sunday show where we have some regular guests, and it's an opportunity for us to have some of the guests we've had on back as well too, to do what we're doing this year. Now we've added to our Sunday shows this gardening roundtable. So just more so than just a one-on-one conversation,
Right.
which I do most of the time. We're now adding an extra person in and doing some things with
That's
that.
fun. I love round tables.
Yeah, I've got a co-host, so there's third Sunday of every month is a book club. We started a monthly gardening book club. So what we do is we have a book each month that we highlight and feature, and then hopefully everybody people go out and read the book or get the book and check it out. But if not, you don't have to do that, because on the third Sunday of each month we get together with the author and do
That's
a
cool.
kind of a review and a talk and a rundown with me and my co-host Mark, who does some of our in the garden segments. He's a great garden educator and great contributor to our show through his in the garden segment that he does on Sundays. So, we got a lot of great things going on. It's a real diversity of what we're offering through our show. I like to call it kind of a garden variety talk show, which is really
Right.
kind of fun too, because that's our book this month for our book club, is a book called Garden Variety that I found because I was researching a name that I was thinking of for the show. So for a while, for the first couple of years, in fact, the concept of the show was called the Garden Variety Show, and that's what it was going to be called. And so, or at least I had in the as I was planning and thinking ahead of time and stuff. But we ended up deciding to go with Let's Get Growing. It was really kind of popular with some people and some polls we were taking in a few gardening groups and all of that. So, and it fit because it was my tagline for my channel. So why not
Right.
use the tag as the name of the show? So we went with that instead. But yeah, it was supposed to be garden variety. So I found this book, Garden Variety by Christy Wilhelmy, and it's a fiction book, and it's a story of a few characters and a bunch of characters, fictional characters out of a community garden in Los Angeles. So they got problems with the neighbor and a bunch of different personalities that go on inside of a community garden where you got all these people who are gardening together and all that. And it's just a really fun read with all these fun characters, and it's a little different kind of a book when you're thinking about gardening, versus a how-to book or even some more non-fictional feature type books when it comes to gardening and all of that. But to have a fiction, a story around gardening, which is really great. So I found that book, Garden Variety, and I was like, well, I like this book, and I think it just, and it was, I think that was at the point in time where I kind of went and decided, well, I'm going to go with a different name for the show.
Can
Kind of
I
that's kind
suggest
of how that happened, though, in a way too. A little
right?
behind the scenes.
Can I suggest a book for you one day? That you
Absolutely.
got.
I
I
love
highly recommend this
suggestions.
book.
That's one of the things I encourage everybody to do.
So
Suggest
there,
guests, books,
right,
authors, all that sort of stuff for sure.
there's a book you can find it on Amazon. It's
Yeah.
called Ponderings from the Pumpkin Patch.
Oh
Ponderings from
yeah.
the Pumpkin Patch, a giant pumpkin grower's pursuit of greatness and God's grace. And I can tell you right now, I am not a reader. I hate reading. Okay. Um,
Yeah.
but I have sat down and read this book twice.
Yeah. Who's the author?
Jim Ford. He's a really
Jim.
good friend of mine, and we've had him on the show.
Oh
Very
nice.
good guy. He wrote this book some 20 odd years ago, and
Yeah.
he brought it back out this year for its kind of revision.
Yeah.
He went in and kind of he didn't rewrite it. He just added new things to it that were more prevalent. So he didn't really change it. He just kind of revised and
Mhm.
made it more modern. And I can tell you now, this book it's like $12.95 or something like that. But I highly recommend it. It's a very good book.
Yeah.
The the analogies that he makes in there are are phenomenal. The articulate I'm pretty good at articulating things, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Um, when it comes to gardening and when it comes to God, I can pretty well articulate my feelings on both of those things very well.
Yeah.
I don't know that I could articulate what he did in that book.
Yeah.
It was just it. Some of
No,
the things that he
I'll definitely
wrote
take your
was just,
recommendation and check that out.
yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
always
I think
looking
you'll
for
like
great
it.
reads. That's one of the things about me and Mark and everything, what we do with this gardening book club too, is, me and him kind of came together on this idea this year because we both love reading books and we both are just real huge fans of tons of gardening books. And we've gone to the Northwest Flower and Garden Show together a few times.
Right.
And each time we end up in that the bookstore full of all these gardening books everywhere. And we're just, to us, that's like where we're nerding out the most. Is like, oh, which book are we gonna get? What's this one? And so it was just natural that we were gonna do a book club together. And I think it's great. And we're just getting it started. We're gonna keep it rolling on and everything. And I think, it's hopefully in some way to kind of bring some enthusiasm around the idea of reading and
Right.
books, and people who are making books in the gardening world are contributing, and what we can learn from them, especially as people too, because there's always a person. Mark likes to say, it's really great because there's always a person behind a book, which was great for him. The first book we did was a book by Ellen Zakos about foraging food, and he got to meet Ellen and see her do a talk up at the Flower and Garden show this year. So he kind
Okay.
of already knew her, so he knew what to expect a little bit. But our second book was by Tony O'Neill from Simplify Gardening on YouTube, and his book Simplify Vegetable Gardening he just put out this year. So we reviewed that book this last month, but he hadn't met Tony before,
Right.
and so for him again too, he kind of reiterated this too at the end of this last show, was about how, for him that's kind of what the kind of cool magic part of what it is that you get to read this book and you get to go through it and you're getting all this information, but then you talk with the author and you get to meet this person, you get to find out
Right.
who they are, and then that makes the connection with the book even more,
Right.
is you need to know and all that. And so that's what makes the book club really cool, is that we're reviewing these great books, books that we're that we both really enjoy. And so we're kind of trying to do a little back and forth thing where it's a book he's picked, a book I've picked, we're kind of doing that sort of thing, and maybe
Right.
hopefully some ones that other people have picked as well will start working its way into the fold. And then again too, like I said, we get that kind of cool, like going through and reading the book, and then get that end of the month, for that meet or book club meeting, which is on our Sunday show. Get to meet the author and talk with them and do that. It's just really great. We've already had just a couple of great shows now. Like I said, with Ellen Zakos, with Tony O'Neill last month. This month we're doing, like I said, Christy Wilhelmi's Garden Variety. Next month we got just someone who's just such an amazing character in the gardening world, mainly known in the Pacific Northwest, though he's hugely popular in the Pacific Northwest. His name's Cisco Morris, and he's just a hoot. This dude is funny. He's got so many great anecdotes about all sorts of things in gardening. But he's got a really kind of fun book called Ooh La La. In fact, I don't know if people can see it, but I have a little, it's like a little white thing in the background that
Yeah, I
says
see it.
Ooh La La on it.
That's funny.
And that's because of Cisco Morris. He's been a person who's been a part of my gardening world since I was, you know, well before I was actually really a gardener at all.
Right.
But because he's just a really popular person. But anyway, so that's, we're gonna be doing that book that next month, which will be really fun for the both of us because we've been both been fans of his for many years. And then what do we got after that? Oh, I can't remember which one we got after that. I know in September though we're doing a Marta McDowell's All the President's Gardens.
Oh,
So we're gonna, and again too, kind of pre-election. I probably should have bumped it up one more month, but we made sure she was available for September, so we got that set up. But kind of a fun, like, kind of look into White House gardens, presidential gardens in the history, in the past, and all of that
that's
stuff.
cool.
So yeah, it's a really great book, and so nothing current. We're not getting into anything current.
Right. Right.
all past presidents, and kind
Right.
of
Right.
highlighting and really kind of really kind of celebrating that sort of thing that goes. There's just there's trees on that property that are so old and historical, and
Right.
and those pieces and stuff like that too. I think it's just great when presidents represent those grounds with garden spaces and really take and put them up. There's probably always with every president tons of decorational and ornamental and landscape gardening and all that sort of stuff that goes on all the time. But when they start bringing in food gardens and that sort of stuff, I think that's even more better. And several presidents
Absolutely.
that sort of thing too. So that's gonna be fun, in doing that. And again, I'm just going on and on. I'll just keep talking and talking about
Dude,
this stuff.
hey, I've got all the time in the world. You ain't hurting me none. I love
I
hearing
will
about things.
I will mention though too, again, because we were talking about Sunday shows, the second Sunday of each month too, we also have with us Scott Wilson, Master Gardener Scott Wilson from the Gardener Scott channel. He's got a
Okay.
really popular YouTube channel, and he joins with us every second Sunday of the month to just do a general gardening Q&A. So if anybody's got anything going on in the garden and you just got some general gardening questions or anything like that, they can always come second Sunday of the month and hang out with us and just chat Gardener Scott's ears off and ask him all sorts of gardening questions and stuff.
That's awesome.
And yeah, and then again too, doing the roundtables, which we'll have to have you back on. I've already kind of got an idea of who and what we're gonna do as
Right.
far as that goes. So I'll
Just let
get
me
with
know.
you soon, and we'll hopefully get you back on to do one of those roundtables because I think that'll be fun.
Absolutely. I love roundtables. They're a lot of fun. I like being able to talk and hear different, opinions on different things. And that's how we learn, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Like I like getting in on chats and stuff,
Mhm.
um so went over to Texas Garden Guy and was watching one of his live streams, and he was like, "Man, I was just on a show because I you know how I am. Me and you,
Yeah, yeah,
we've talked quite a bit, and
yeah,
so I
exactly.
went to Texas Garden Guy and I was like, hey, start following you on Instagram and stuff. I like what you're doing. Can I possibly talk you into getting on the show? And he was
Yeah.
like, yeah, man, sure. And I'm like, what?
Yeah,
You said yeah, like,
yeah,
and he's like,
no doubt,
yeah,
right?
I mean, because I get no response from a lot of people, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
I've told you this before, and so I was like, heck yeah, man, awesome, So whenever he was on with when I was on before him, but we got to chat, that was our first time actually chatting together outside of just messaging one another. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
And
exactly.
so, yeah, and so he got to hear about me, me and you talk. And so
Yeah.
he's on talking about me on his show, and he's like, I was just on the show with him, over on Urban Gardener stuff. And
Yeah, yeah, you were in the chat and he saw you.
yeah, yeah. And so like I was and so I started talking and stuff, and he's like, man, this dude's like insane. He's got all these records. He's like, I didn't even know. Like I've been talking to him since
Yeah.
January, and I didn't even know this guy had all these records and all this, that, and the other. And he was like, "This dude's too cool. We gotta get him on my show now." And I'm like, "Oh, that's cool. Thank you, thank you. Like I appreciate that." But yeah, I mean, I
See, that's what
love
this is all about, and that's exactly like what my show and my efforts and what I put myself out there for is, at the top of the screen on my show, it says building community
Yep,
through gardening. And that's the idea is because I'm such a huge fan of the YouTube gardening space, gardening and social media in general, whether you're an Instagram gardener, do TikToks and reels, and
right,
Facebook. One of my favorite guests I've had is a guy named Mike Van Duzy, and he's really popular on Facebook. He's got
right.
like a million followers on Facebook, and his
That's
pages
crazy.
are great, And so, whether you're wherever you are, and I like bringing people together for one, so I can get to meet people and I get to have conversations and introduce them to people, but then hopefully introduce people to other people too, so
Right,
that they get to know and maybe even get to see each other just a little bit better and have a better understanding. And that's exactly what kind of the mission of my show is really, is
right,
to kind of expand that gardening community and bring people together. So like when I saw, getting you together on the show with Texas Garden Guy, having you on my front segment and then having him on the back segment, I was like, man, that'd be cool if these guys get together and do that and that sort of thing. And that's really great to hear that later on there was even some more dialogue and some more kind of that sort of thing too,
right.
because because that just only reinforces
what you do.
what and what I'm doing and what I'm trying to accomplish in that sort of
Right.
sense,
Well, I think you're doing a great job of it, and I really applaud you for trying to help build that community because you know
Yeah.
it is very let's just be very clear. It is hard for an up and comer to get people to come on their show. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yep.
Because for whatever reason, whether it's hard to
Yep.
get in touch with people, whether some people think, well, I'm bigger than you, so I don't want to stoop down to, lift you up. You ain't riding my
Yep.
coattail. Whatever I don't care what the issue is. Whatever it is, it's hard for an up and comer to get those people on. And
Mhm.
so what you're doing is you're mixing and stuff. You're like, this is a little one, this is a big one. You're mixing
Yeah.
them up. Even if you don't purposefully do it, it still is happening organically, and it's
Yeah.
beautiful because then they get to see, oh, well, yeah, he's little, but
Yeah.
he's a cool person. You know what I mean? He
Yeah, yeah.
knows what he's doing. He's not, and so you get that interaction, and so I think what you're doing is
And
great.
that's
And
really kind of the idea, is that we have a bigger featured guest on so that hopefully people who follow and watch them will come to see the show, but then they'll also get introduced to someone who has a smaller channel, or maybe, like I said, an Instagram presence or a Facebook presence or something,
right,
or just maybe in a smaller sense, so that we're introducing, we can kind of mix some people in and give them kind of a lift up just a little bit, because that's kind
right,
of the idea of building community, is also finding people who are who are working and trying to achieve things and kind of help lift them up. I've had a few people kind of do that and help me out a little bit too along the way. But that's one of the other things too, is I certainly don't think of myself as a big channel. Like I
right.
mentioned, I only got over 15,000 subscribers. That's not very big
Well,
compared to the people that I get on my show.
right, right,
That's where things, and to me, I still don't understand it. I'm like, I sometimes I'm like, how do I get all these people? And sometimes it's a lot of just asking and being persistent, and there's a lot of
persistent.
persistence.
Right,
I'm sure there's people, I'm sure there's some guests who are like, okay, I'll be on already.
right, right. Just to quieten you down. I'm tired of being asked. Yeah,
I mean, maybe, I don't know. I hate to think so, but for the most part, but that was kind of the idea, though, is I wanted to do something that was unique, and I really wanted to put it forward and do that. And if my smaller, bigger presence, in a sense, because a lot of smaller channels, look up to what my channel is and what I do. You mentioned
right,
something too. It's like, when you get that sort of response from Texas Garden Guy, or you get something and you're like, whoa, yeah, what, really? I
right,
know what that feels like.
right,
I still get that feeling, like I mentioned about Mark, you know what I mean? That's
right.
huge, you know what I mean? So that's why I try to make sure, like, when you ask me, "Hey, you wanna be on your show?" I make sure I come on and come and hang
Absolutely.
out and talk, because I think that's a great way to kinda, participate and share that, and share as much of what I've got going on with other people, so that, in the long run, we're just doing one large collaboration and that sort of thing,
Right,
and maybe, down the road it'll get bigger and better, and we're having a great year so far. The audience is growing really well and doing really well. We're getting some pretty lively chat anymore, and that's just really kind of the accomplishment. We're still just trying to balance some things out a little bit with a few things, but as far as things are going, and into the future, hopefully I can keep it up and keep bringing more and more awesome and unique guests too. That's also going to start to present itself to be as a challenge, is bringing on more unique guests versus people I've already had on before, because I've had
right.
so many awesome people on before. I've now got to slot them for future shows and do things, but then now I'm running out of slots for new people and
Right.
newer guests that people haven't met before, because I've got all these other people I want to have back on. That's how the Sunday show started and everything. And who knows, we might end up networking so much in the next year or two as well, that we might have to do like throughout the week show of
Right.
and almost the daily gardening show or something.
Which I would love
Because
that.
that would be amazing. That would be
Be
something
like the
else. But
Joe Rogan of
I would
gardening.
definitely have to be getting paid. if that was the case, Ryan.
Right.
That's one thing else too is a lot of people don't understand is that this guy don't get paid either.
Right.
My
Right.
channel, I don't have a big enough channel to be getting
Nope.
paid, you know. I
Me
guess
neither.
I get a little bit of money. I make a little
I
bit of
think
money.
I make $100 every 6 to 7 months.
Yeah. I'm
You
a
know,
little better than
yeah.
I'll
So
say that. It ain't
I don't.
much better. I make
Yeah.
maybe I mean, well, during the winter months, it kinda dips down there maybe around, around 50, $60 a month. And
Right.
then maybe during the height of spring going into summer, it might get up as well up to maybe as north as $300 a month.
There you go. Yeah.
That's nothing. That ain't paying my bills.
No, it ain't paying your bills, but it's
It
nice little pocket change. You know.
it helps. It buys
Yeah.
the can I always reinvest that money.
That's what I do.
In
Yep.
fact, actually, the very first $100 I made because you know that they only do it in $100 increments. You have
Right.
to make at least $100 before they'll send you a check. So I remember waiting for that very first $100. I was watching it tick. I mean, we're talking about 5, $7 a month. You know,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
5,
I
seven
know.
bucks a month. I'm watching it. As soon as that hits $100, that money's mine.
Yep.
But it's still literally, I had it in my mind already was that, I'm gonna reinvest the money anyways, but what ended up happening was the Million Trees thing was happening, and another channel that I followed was tying in, something that was going on with them, Justin Rhodes.
Yep.
Well, Justin Rhodes just lost his father, so the Million Trees things was going on, so he's like, "Hey, why don't you go make a donation to the Million Trees and do it in his name?" That
Right.
sort of thing. And so the very first $100 I made, I donated to Million Trees for Justin Rhodes' father.
That's cool.
So
That's
that
very
was that was the very first $100 I made from YouTube. Actually, I'll tell you this story really. It's kind of funny though too. Is the very first money though that I ever made from YouTube. Okay, it was I was about to make 1,000 subscribers, which meant back then I wasn't able to get monetized yet. So
right.
it wasn't monetized yet, but I was about to get my first 1,000 subs. And when you have 1,000 subs, YouTube Spaces down in LA will let you in, and now you can sign up to use YouTube Spaces, talk to people, have the services that they have for YouTube creators, but you have
Right.
to meet that 1,000 sub threshold. And so I made the 1,000 right as I was making a trip to Los Angeles. So I went to go celebrate my 1,000 subs at the YouTube Spaces, which, mind you, and I'd been there before. I went
Right.
to go check it out my first time in Los Angeles, so I knew where it was. I checked it out, and that's why I knew about the program and talked to all of them about it and all that sort of stuff. So I was like, I'm going to be back here for my 1,000 subs. So by the time I get my 1,000 subs, they've closed down YouTube Spaces for
Ah.
creators, and YouTube was using it for something else. But I showed up anyways. But here's the thing, though: I step out of my car, and right there on the pavement of the parking lot there of YouTube was 15 cents, a dime and a nickel. And I still have that dime and a nickel. It sits on my desk.
That's
It's the
funny.
very first 15 cents I made from YouTube
That's
out of
funny.
the parking lot of the
That is
YouTube
funny. That is
Google
funny.
Spaces in Los Angeles. So that was
That's
my first 15 cents I made from YouTube.
that is funny, man.
Yeah.
So like what do they use it for now, you said? Using it
I'm
for
not even
what?
sure. I think it even just might be just more of a similar type of stuff, but for more bigger channels and
Oh,
bigger
okay.
things and stuff versus making it a program that's available to, like the general creator, basically.
Right.
Most of us creators are only within a few thousand
Right.
subscribers. I
Right.
mean, 10,000 is a huge mark for most creators.
Right. Right.
But I mean, 15,000 where I am, and that's why I understand for most people why they go, "Oh, wow, dude, you got 15,000 subscribers." Yeah, well, it took me
But
years to do it,
yeah,
but
I mean
still, for
that's
me,
still
that's
not
a small channel still,
right.
but for most YouTubers,
That's
that's
big.
a big accomplishment.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
huge for me. I can't believe it every time I think about it. Yeah, I was like, "Holy smokes," you know? I mean, there's dreams of like, "Oh, what would it be like to be a million subscriber channel? How awesome would that be?" You know?
I don't
You
know that
know?
I'd want to be that big though, you know?
I know, I've thought about that too. I've actually talked about this with, the audience on some of, my live streams where during the winter time before we got the new season started up, I was having some conversations about that because I've got this really awesome, moderator, Jay Dixon, just does
Yeah,
some
he
really
was doing good.
yeah, um, she she does some
Oh,
really good stuff.
sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. I had to find that out the hard way myself too.
Okay.
But, but, yeah, she, awesome moderator, kicks ass with taking care of everything, you know, just the way you would want for everything, and we've talked about that idea as I've talked about this was actually back when I was first talking to Mark, and I first mentioned that that was even maybe a possibility, and so it was kind of the idea of like, "Oh, well, what would that show be like?" You know, if you had, even 1,000 people show up
Right.
in the chat box,
You
and
couldn't
that's when I
keep
was
up with
kinda
it.
thinking about it, I was like, "Holy smoke, yeah." It's like if you were a big channel like that, you just can't manage
Mm-mm.
a live stream. I mean, you'd have to have people help you manage that stuff in a sense. It would have
Well,
to
like
be you would have to have a system. I'd have to have more than one moderator. We'd have to have some way of doing things, and you couldn't have complete audience interaction.
no, you can't. Well, go watch like Doug and Stacy. They got over 1 million followers, right?
Yep,
Go
yeah,
watch them,
yeah,
and there's no way that they can keep up.
yeah,
Like you literally have to, if you want to be seen or heard or whatever you want to call it in the chat, you have
mhm,
to hit it the same, like copy paste in the chat like every 3 seconds in order for him to see it because it's going by so fast. And
mhm,
that's with him slowing it down. It's still going by so fast that
yep,
you have to put it in like every 3 seconds before he'll finally see it,
yep,
and so I mean, yeah, you don't get the full interaction. The other thing though, too, that I wouldn't want is I don't think you'd be very happy because you know how much hate that you would probably get from
yeah.
people who are just like, oh, that's stupid or that's dumb or, like whatever, right? Like
You gotta
just because,
build the stomach for that stuff. I think I've already pretty much accomplished that at what I've
yeah,
done. Yeah, you just click, it's gone. I don't let anything. It's just haters are haters, and people are gonna say stupid things
right,
and be irresponsible with their behavior. And I've had some people even recently jump into our chat that was just kind of like, okay, you don't really belong here, you know, that sort of stuff, and you just kind of go by it. But yeah, it really is like you said, it's that volume, you know, and that's kind of what I was talking with them about was just like, could you imagine when the chat's just streaming through and you just
yep,
how you pick through and how you do things and stuff. You know, the one of the ideas I was thinking about too is like if it was so out of hand, what you would have to do is probably have like some hashtag keywords. So make up a few hashtag keywords before the show, and then
right,
like you can do a StreamYard and you can pop them up at the bottom there. And so you let people ask a question or something utilizing that hashtag,
right,
right? And then you can use the StreamYard um, give giveaway tool
right, to pick it,
to pick the hashtag, just to pick questions. It's not even for a giveaway, just to pick
right,
questions. Just to be like, there's so many, I'll never be able to see whatever. So if you have a question for this hashtag water, right?
right,
If for the subject we're talking about watering right now, put in hashtag water, put in your question, and then we'll hit that thing and just to like, you know, have it
right,
randomly pick some questions for us because we wouldn't be able to really pull them out and in a way. Or, I mean, you would really have to have someone that's just their focus. You would have to have a producer on your
yep,
show that just that's what their focus is to mind the chat box for content that's displayable, meaning
right,
ask questions about it or have it on the screen.
right, and that
It
Yeah.
means you'd have to have a production. That means anybody with those millions of subscribers in order to do live streaming would have to have a production.
Yep. And that's money.
Money.
That's money.
Yeah.
So yeah, that I don't
You
actually
said,
yeah,
so
like that.
success could be like a hindrance to what you're trying to accomplish as well
That's
too.
true. That's true.
I mean, I love, for me, I think if I could get into the 100 area,
That's
100,
where I'm at. 50,000 to 100,000. I think I'd be good.
I think that would be great. Then I think the community's just the right size. Your conversations are good. You've got enough people constantly moving things to
Yep.
where you can possibly make that good monthly income,
Right.
that can help, sustain what you need to do. And I mean, that would be great. But you know what? I'm fine if it doesn't either, because
I am too, man.
I
I'm gonna
just
keep
enjoy what I'm doing. I mean, again, too, like I said, I encourage anybody if they're listening or following along to go and check out my live stream page on my YouTube channel and go check out all the awesome people I get to talk to all the time.
absolutely because
I
it's really good stuff.
just, I
Really
just,
good stuff.
I just want to keep doing that, and as long as I get to keep doing that, I'm happy as a clam, man.
There you go, man.
Money
There you
can
go.
come, money can not come. It doesn't matter. I mean, I don't measure success on what I'm doing based on that sort of stuff. It really
Absolutely.
is. I do like, again, too, to mark off some really cool people off the top of my want list. That's amazing. Again, like we mentioned too, getting that email back from those folks and saying, "Hey, yeah, I'm interested. I'll do the show," is like hallelujah. I dance those days. I'm like, yeah,
Right.
dude. The day it was the day that I got heard from Mark the first time was just like one of the great. I was in like happy land all the rest of the day, and then more so when I actually booked the day and we agreed that here's the day, this is when we're going to do it. When that day happened, I was just like dancing. I was like, this is it.
This
Yeah.
is awesome. Finally, right?
And
Hallelujah.
10 people could show up to that show. And I'm
Yep.
not, you know what? Just or 1,000 people. Either way, it's just gonna, to me, I get to talk to Mark Valencia. I get to share some conversation with him about gardening and growing and YouTubing and that sort of stuff. That's just going to be amazing. And then not only that too, it's a live stream, so hopefully there's not 10 people there. I hope people take advantage of it,
Right.
as many people as possible, because again too, I'll take some questions. I'll ask Mark Valencia from Self-Sufficient Me questions that you have,
Right.
to ask him, and I'll ask him for you on the show. That's a great thing about doing these live streams like that, is that we get, those who are watching can ask some questions, and we get to talk and interact with them as well, and share with them as well too, so they get to be a part of the interview. So if
Right.
you're there live with us, live, like being here live right now, you get to be a part of the interview, and
Right. And that's very cool.
replays are great. It's awesome to be able to catch things and see what you missed and all that sort of stuff. But with these live shows like that, when we get the opportunity to have live guests with us, you want to make sure you're there. You want to make sure you're dropping in there and dropping the questions in and being a part of the conversation. And that's one of the
Absolutely.
things too, and we do our best. And again too, it'll be a challenge, and see what we can do on that day with Mark. And again, it'll give us an idea of what it's like to be one of those bigger channels, maybe,
Right.
and we'll do our best to answer as many questions and get them in as best we can, and all that sort of stuff. We try that the best we can with each of our guests each and every week, to make sure that those who are watching with us are a part of that conversation.
Right. Right. So I
Yeah.
hope it does really well. I can't wait for it. I'm excited for you. And yeah, I think it's gonna be a great show. And
Yeah.
I hope that everybody that goes back and rewatches this, I hope you guys will go over and check out the Urban Gardener and go check out his live streams and subscribe to his channel, because he's a great guy, got a lot of great content, and he knows what he's doing in a garden. He just does, and he can prove it
I
all
think.
over his Instagram and all over his
Yeah.
YouTube channel.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, come join us for sure. I mean, again, too, I know I see Adam's in the comment. He's there all the time. Adam's actually local to me, so
Oh,
he's a
that's
good
cool.
friend here. That's awesome. And I like what he says. Jay is on point for all the channels she moderates. Yeah, Jay, we got a great moderator. She's probably
That's
going to
cool.
need some help with the Mark show, but we'll get. In fact, I think I finally did. I'll just let Adam know right here while we're on with your show. Ryan. I'm going to talk to Adam for a second here.
Go ahead.
But
Go
no,
ahead.
I was going to say to Adam that I think I got everything set up. So I think he might be a moderator. So I definitely need Adam on our Mark Valencia show too. So I think I got him set up to be a moderator as well too, because we were
Cool.
talking about that. And
That's
I think he asked me something about that recently, and I wasn't able to get to it on my last show. So I just want to let him know while he's here.
there you go. There you go. It's
Well, thanks
always
for
cool to be a
yeah,
mod, man. What is it?
yeah. I was just saying thanks for Adam for showing up and hanging out and jumping in
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
conversation.
Thanks. So I'm gonna run through this real quick before I let you go. This is
Absolutely.
who all we got coming up. So next week, June 4th, we got Zach Hatton from Hatton's Homestead. He's going to be
Okay.
with us. He's a giant grower. Then June 11th, we got Nick Kennedy. He's got the California state record for giant pumpkin. He'll be with us on June 11th. June
Nice.
18th, we've got Adam Weber, which is another giant grower. June 25th, we've got Jesus Loving Homestead. Her and her husband was just in here a minute ago. July 2nd, we got Milk and Honey Homestead. So Heather will be with us. July 9th, we've got Flourish Florida Farm. July 16th, we've got Big Valley Living. July 23rd, we got Where to Begin Homestead. July 30th, we're switching back over to Giant Growing. So we'll have Emmett Andrews. He'll be on with us. August 6th, we've got Texas Garden Guide, Destin Noak. So he's going to be on with us. August
That's good.
13th, yeah, he's a really great guy. August 13th, we've got Angela, the Inquisitive Farm Wife.
Yeah.
August 20th, we've got Cameron Barron, another giant grower. August 27th, we got Gillum Farm. September 3rd and September 10th, I've got open right now. I'm trying to get Professor Toto to come on. He teaches the Conservative College. Go check him out. If you're not already, you can check him out at Shane Vaughn here on YouTube. Got a really a lot of good stuff that he teaches about just about the Constitution and stuff. Like that guy's stuff. September 17th, we got Lisa from Yogi Hollow Farms. September 24th, we've got Vikram, the plant professor. He's going to be on with us September 24th.
Nice.
September 30th, we're going to go on I think that's a Monday. We're going to have Joe from Garden State Gardening. He's going to be on.
Yeah.
I was on his show, really good show. And then I also went and co-hosted with him last Tuesday on his other
Yeah.
one, Grow Big TV. That was a lot of fun.
Right on. Right
We
on.
got him coming on September 30th. Then we've got October 8th through the 29th and November 5th, 26th, December 3rd through the 31st. Those are all open. So if you want to come on the show, you can email me at babydrill2119@yahoo.com. In the subject, put live stream so I make sure I mark it, or my wife will see it and mark it, and I'll get it, and we'll get you a date set up. But yeah, we got a lot of good people coming on. Thank you so much for spending your time with me this evening, Enoch. I love our conversations. I could do this
No
all
problem.
day with you.
For sure. Absolutely. Like I can definitely talk and talk and talk about things. We've talked about that before. So we could definitely go all day, but we eventually got to move on sometime, right?
Right. Absolutely.
I think
Absolutely.
that's a great. Also, I just want to mention, I think you got a great lineup. You got a lot of great things going on with your show and all of that. I do want to mention to everybody out there, though, too, is that it is one of the missions that I do with my show and everything is to bring people together to create and grow the online gardening, YouTube gardening, that sort of thing, to grow this community and to help share and do them as much as we can. So I think what you do to help do more of that is really amazing, really awesome. And I think you really represent our community very well. And I hope that everybody else who watches also thinks the same way. And if you do, and you really do support Heavenly Hills Homestead and this show and all the live things that he does, definitely be sure to do all the things that really help out creators and people who are doing things on their channels by, clicking that thumbs up. Liking is one thing. It's very simple. You can do that, but go even further. Jump into that comment section and, say hi, let them know you're watching, do
That's
all of
right.
that. Just all that. Comments are huge. They help move videos and get people and get things and interviews that we do seen by other people. So I think that's really great. Do that. Jump in there, comment. And then here's another big thing though, too, is that You know, more so not just from tooting my own horn or getting people to come and subscribe to me, though, but you've got a great list of some awesome people coming up on your show. So if you're watching this and you're seeing him interview people, represent Heavenly Hills Homestead by going over to visit those other channels and those other people that he's interviewing, and let them know that you came from Heavenly Hills Homestead in their comments section. That's going to help their comment section. That's going to help Ryan and his channel and all of that as well too. And then we're going to just really help and grow each other's communities by creating one big, large, amazing, awesome gardening community. So
That's
hopefully
right.
that's some really great parting words for everybody there. You know, support everybody, and it's just the simple stuff we can all do to help support each other. You know,
Right.
and those likes and comments are big one. And then after that, share. You know, let people know. Let people know. Share with everybody about all these great gardening and fun conversations, and the fact that we got these cool live streams that you all get to participate in, and all of that too.
That's right. And let's not forget, whenever I get the bigger people on, I'm a smaller channel, so you got more room in the comment section to get your questions through.
Yes, absolutely. That's
So
right.
yeah, so let's not forget that, the smaller people's got the one up whenever it comes to bigger channels, because we're
Mhm.
not flooded with comments. So you guys can
That's
get your
right.
questions in a lot easier.
That's right. That's right. That's why you got to really get on to some of these great conversations and these great channels doing these really awesome things and stuff. And like I said, you do a really great job. I don't know if this is like what third time I've been on with you, I
Yes,
think
sir.
now,
Third
and
time. Yep.
awesome. I'm looking forward to the next time, and looking forward to having you back on my show and doing some things here in the future, and just working together, and continuing to represent gardening and growing food, and the importance of empowering ourselves by doing that. Whether you've got a nice space like Ryan's got at Heavenly Hills Homestead, or you've got some small little city space like I've got here in the city, we can all find ways to grow more and empower ourselves more through growing food. And
That's right.
yeah, so
And we
definitely
can
keep
learn from
following.
one another.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Jane Doe says there, please like, share, and subscribe. That's right. Like,
Thank
share,
you.
subscribe, comment, do all those simple things, and really help push everything forward. Great to
Yes.
talk to you today, Ryan.
You
Awesome.
too. You too,
Yeah.
man. So guys, y'all see the y'all got the lineup. I'm going to cut this man loose because he has been on here for a long time, and I don't want to take up any more of his time because I know he's a busy fella. So we're going to get out of here. Guys, we appreciate you watching. And as always, we'll see you next time right here in the hollers and hills of West Virginia. See y'all.